with more on what jurors already heard. Emily?
Yes, good afternoon, Jordan. I just stepped outside of the opening statements, and as the jury was brought in, the judge first told them that Dr. James Corasanti was in fact drunk when he drove home that night on July 8th, 2011. We first heard from the prosecution, Terry Connors, who's representing Alex Rice's parents. He was the first in opening statements, and he says that Dr. Corasanti was texting his mistress the minutes leading up to the accident and also after the accident occurred. 11:19 was that last text message 1 mile before the accident. He says that we will hear from witnesses Mark Rowland and his wife who were headed home that evening. They said that they could clearly see Alex as they approached her and passed her, that she was wearing a bright shirt. He says that a car was speeding in the lane behind them and that it was not staying in its lane, and they had a sinking feeling. They heard a bang and made a U-turn because they knew something horrible had happened. Connors pointed out that Dr. Corasanti didn't stop even though he's a doctor. Instead, he headed home into his garage, closed the garage door, and looked at his car, saw tissue and blood, and then sent his wife to the scene instead of himself. He said he then called his lawyer with law enforcement ties. We also heard about Alex Rice's injuries. He said that the car was traveling at 50 miles per hour, that her legs snapped like twigs when she was hit. She was then scooped up onto the hood of the car before she was launched a half a football field away. He also talked about that her rib bones were broke apart, she had bleeding to her brain, and that the injuries to her neck are what killed her. He said it was a horrible way to die. Connors also talked about what those witnesses said about that noise when the accident happened.
Their worst nightmare happened. They sat there at that light with nothing to do to help her until they heard this almighty bang. That's their words. An ungodly sound. They're 60 yards away from that contact, and they hear it clearly, and it is an ominous sound that they heard.
And they're taking a short break now. Then we're going to be hearing from Dr. Corasanti's attorneys, and we're expected for them to put the blame onto Alex Rice's conduct and the moments before the crash. We'll make sure to bring those to you coming up tonight on News 4 at 5. Reporting live, Emily Guggenmans, News 4 at noon.